if you own a diesel vehicle, you have a problem and there's something that you need to be worried about. A government panel has recommended that all diesel four-wheelers should be banned by 2027 in larger cities, in cities that have large number of populations in India. The proposal could have a significant impact if it's accepted, not just on the car makers such as Tata, Mahindra and Mahindra, but also on owners, on us. The Energy Transition Advisory Committee, headed by former Petroleum Secretary Tarun Kapoor, has recommended that city transport should be a mix of metro trains and electric buses by 2023, in addition to suggesting that by 2027 we should phase out diesel four-wheeler vehicles. Now, if accepted, the recommendations will dramatically hasten what has so far been a gradual move towards cleaner fuels. The panel's recommendation come on the back of government's aim to reduce greenhouse gas emission and to produce 40% of its electricity from renewable sources as a part of its 2070 net zero goal. On the show today, the impact of such an advisory committee recommendation if implemented, and how will consumers be impacted along with car makers. Joining us at this point in time is Amar Jatin, Sheth of Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. Sir, thank you for taking time out to be with us. Before I come to you with a question, I want to tell our viewers, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to News9. This is an important story because this affects not just car makers but also us individuals. I want to understand from you the larger fine prints of what the panel said. Does this mean that every person who owns a diesel vehicle should be worried about parting ways with their vehicle as of 2027?
No, I don't think that is what the panel has said. So I think that if you already own a vehicle today, there is nothing in the advisory that says that you need to sell it off before that. But of course, it also would mean that they are suggesting that the diesel vehicles are something that should not be encouraged, at least in the cities which have over the 1 million population. So there are, maybe the fine print still needs to come out, but the questions will remain that what would happen if you're traveling between cities or between states? Would you still be allowed entry? What would happen to you, like you rightly said, your existing vehicle? So those details are still to come out. But after 2027, as per the panel, the diesel vehicles should not be sold is their suggestion at this moment.
Okay. And what sort of impact is that going to have on all the car makers who are still selling diesel vehicles, including, as I mentioned, Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata, part of offerings from Kia are also diesel vehicles. What sort of impact is going to have on all these car makers? What is their inventory with diesel vehicles, if you can give us some ballpark figure, and how many diesel vehicles do they sell annually?
So if we look at actually the transition away from diesel has already started happening some time back. So if we look at a 2015 database, the share of diesel was 49% of the passenger vehicles sold, while recently it has only been sub 20%. So not only is the country moving towards alternatives to diesel, which predominantly till now was petrol, but slowly and slowly, I think even there have been alternative fuels available in terms of CNG, in terms of hybrid. Of course, the EVs are catching up. So I guess that share of diesel in the total sale will keep reducing.
Okay. And any numbers as to how much inventory does Tata, M&M and big key diesel players have at this point in time?
I think we need not be too worried about the inventory currently, because there is still a lot of time till 2027. I think the one good thing is that they have spoken about it 4 years in advance. It gives them OEMs time to plan their strategies too. However, recent times, the inventories have not been very high at manufacturers and at dealer ends. There has been waiting periods for most vehicles. So in my opinion, inventory would not be more than a month across the OEM as well as the dealership.
Okay. Now, the larger question that comes to my mind, therefore, is the fact that there has been a sustained effort to move away from diesel towards petrol and now towards EV vehicles in the last couple of years. There are researches that suggest that diesel is not as polluting as appears to be now. I'm not an economist, so a disclaimer there. But in fact, OEMs and automakers have said it continuously that diesel, as assumed to be polluting, is not the case. There is scientific evidence to say so. Would you agree with that assessment?
No, I would absolutely agree with that assessment. So, diesel is got the label of a unclean fuel, but I don't think it is that any longer. Globally, also there has been a lot of advancement in technology. There are so many new sensors, monitors, etc. with the car, which ensures a cleaner emission. In India, actually, we are far ahead of that. Not only did we skip the whole BS5 stage, we moved in India from the BS4 to the BS6, looking at the pollution in mind, or looking at the emission norms in mind. And even in the BS6, from this April, we are already manufacturing the BS6 Part 2, which is the OBD2 cars. So which is itself is a large step ahead. So a diesel vehicle today is certainly not the diesel vehicle you think of when someone says diesel, which has a trail of black gas being emitted from its tailpipe. So it's not the case anymore. But on the flip side, because of the advancement in technology, the car itself has become a lot more expensive. So the manufacturers have spent a lot of money on diesel upgradation of their technology, making those investments. Of course, they will pass the costs to the consumer. So that makes a diesel car today actually quite expensive. And for that reason, like economist wise, if you're saying, it has made a few manufacturers actually stop offering diesel to the market. So they offer today only a petrol variant, and those who are relying heavily on diesel now have rejected their portfolio to be competitive in the other segments too. But from a OEM point of view, I think an policy which is clear a long time before they make their investments would be appreciated, and that would help them plan their future too.
Okay. Now, this is obviously just an advisory. We don't know whether this is going to be accepted or not. We'll have to wait and watch out for that. But interesting recommendation also coming in there as far as city transport is concerned, which should be now a mix of metro and electric buses. What sort of impact will that have on the existing fleet of city transport that we have on metro cities such as Delhi?
So if we look at already, there has been movement to electrification of the buses, or the intercity movement certainly is becoming more and more electric and hybrid or CNG in certain parts of the state. So I guess shift at that end has to happen first, and the passenger vehicle has to happen later. Of course, with the metro and being launched in a lot of new cities, things will keep on becoming easier there, and we might see lesser vehicles on road, at least for your daily commute.
Okay. Also, as far as shift towards cleaner fuel is concerned, we discussed this, and we've been discussing here on News9 as to faster adoption of electric vehicles, the missing infrastructure around it, and an increased thrust as far as two-wheelers is concerned and four-wheelers is concerned. With two-wheelers, we have the FAME scheme. We don't know whether that's going to continue beyond March of 2024. With four-wheelers specifically, there are challenges such as, charging stations, there are challenges with, mobility on highways. How do you see India or the car makers in general mitigating those challenges? Because a large part of the onus is on the government as well as the car makers to ensure that there is infrastructure around electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think this is certainly the flavor of the season, where EVs are spoken about in the same breath as you mentioned transport. Yes, the two-wheelers have seen a much faster adoption. You've also seen the adoption happening in the commercial vehicles of point-to-point transport at least. Long distance still remains a challenge, and I think it will continue to remain a challenge for some time. We have to accept that a change is going to happen to some sort of alternative fuel. Is EV that, or is it hydrogen, or is it something else? We don't know. But I think if we look maybe a decade down the line, there has to be some sort of change that is going to happen in the existing fuel that the car is powered by. So which way the course will take? Of course, you're right. The FAME subsidy has helped in the passenger vehicles and the two-wheelers, because those are the two segments that it is applicable on. But in the larger commercial vehicles or LCV category, it is not applicable. So it's not making that much of a difference. But what happens when that subsidy reduces, or what is the subsidy the reason of the growth of that segment, are those questions, I think, which only time will tell.
Okay. Of course, those are questions that time will tell, and the government will also have to reveal to us at large. My final question to you before I let you go. Obviously, there is a lot of thrust around EV, as you rightly mentioned. It's the flavor of the season, but there are other cleaner fuels as well, and a lot of car makers. And I would like to remind at this point in time, especially Mr. Bhargava of the Maruti, has been hinting at other cleaner fuels apart from EV, and suggesting that even electric vehicles, for that matter, will require electricity and therefore resources that will be utilized. What are the other possible suggestions that you can give to our viewers at this point in time? CNG, of course, being very sought after, but EV is not where the buck stops, is it? There are other options as well.
Absolutely, there are. And like you mentioned, Mr. Bhargav's statement, similarly, all the Japanese manufacturers, in my opinion, currently are looking at alternatives to EV as being more future oriented. You don't see too many EVs from these manufacturers present in worldwide and in the country today. So maybe they know something, or they've been working on something that we aren't too aware of. There certainly will be alternatives to EV, and in my personal opinion, also EV is maybe shifting the pollution from one place to another.
That is correct.
Maybe more localized at where it is mined or where it is generated, but it's not solving the problem. So I think there needs to be a much more robust solution to this problem of emission that comes in.
That is correct, because this is and I want to thrust on this, focus on this a little bit more, because there's often a feeling here that EV is the answer to all our problems, but that may not be the case.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I don't think so. It will have to be, there will be, like I mentioned, some sort of replacement to the existing fuels. Which one is it? Which one will get more acceptance, more adaptability, more ease of transmission, more availability at customers' convenience? We'll have to wait and watch for that.
Of course.